The next step in our prep work will be to seal the cracks where the lava is going to be. So what I've done is taken some of your basic white PVA glue, this Elmer's school glue, and going to pour a little bit in, take an old brush, spread it around, making sure that the wood is covered and that any cracks between the foam and the wood are sealed, and we'll let that dry, and that'll give us a nice watertight seal on the bottom. The second step will be to mix up some plaster, and we'll pour the plaster in up to about maybe 1/4 of an inch from the top and let that set. And once that has set, then we'll take our trusty liquid nails and pour some in and spread it around at different heights to give us a three-dimensional look to what we're actually going to paint up for the lava. Now it's time to go ahead and mix our plaster up. So we have everything we need laid out on the table. We have our casting plaster, we have a cup to actually mix the plaster in, water that doesn't have to be bottled water, it can be water right out of the faucet as long as it's cold. It doesn't have to be ice cold, but definitely you don't want warm or hot water. Have measuring cup, sifter for the plaster, and something to stir with. I'm using the lightweight hydrocal. You don't have to use hydrocal. You can use plaster of Paris, you can use dental plaster. There are tons of different things that you can use, but for me this works best. Seems to have less air bubbles. It is lighter, and it is actually stronger than plaster of Paris, but not as strong as dental plaster. Depending on which type of plaster you decide to go with, lightweight hydrocal is 1 1/4 cups of hydrocal to 1/2 cup of water. Plaster of Paris, I believe, is 1 to 1. Dental plaster, I'm not even real sure right offhand. It's been a while since I've used that, but just make sure to read the instructions on the label and make sure that you're mixing it correctly. I, however, don't go by that. I use the recommended amount of water, but then I will sift it in, and once it gets to a consistency that I'm comfortable with, then I'll go ahead and use it at that point. And I'm going to show you how I do that. So there are 3 different consistencies that you can go with. You can get it thin, where it's not going to be as strong and it takes a little bit longer to set up. You can go the medium route, which is what I'm going to do here, and then you can go heavy set, which you add less water and more plaster, and that's going to make it harden faster, and it will actually dry a little bit harder, have a little more of a chalky consistency. Okay, so we have all of our tools handy. I'm going to put in 1/2 of a cup of water. And there we go. Now I've already mixed, well, I say mixed, I've already dumped in enough that will probably complete this. It says to do 1 1/4 cups. Give or take. Mostly give. So now I'm going to start straining it in, and I'm going to do this rather slowly. I don't know if you can see that, see what's actually happening inside. Let's see if I can adjust this. See how the water is actually soaking up the plaster? Or the plaster soaking up the water? Hello. I don't know if you can see in there good enough. We don't want to agitate this too much as we're doing the sifting, so try not to hit the cup or move the cup too much. And yes, this is an extremely long and drawn out process, but it'll keep it from getting too lumpy too quickly. Okay, now that I've made a huge mess getting it all around the cup, I want to show you what consistency we're looking for. You can see that all of the plaster inside is wet, but the water is not covering it up. So this is the consistency that we're looking for, and hopefully you can see that on the camera. And at this point we can go ahead and start stirring. Now to stir, we're going to go back and forth and relatively slowly. We want to minimize air bubbles, and you can see almost immediately the air bubbles rising to the top as you stir. You don't want to remove whatever you're stirring with. Just go back and forth. Don't do it in circular motions. And don't remove, take your stick out, put it back in, take it out, put it in, because you're just adding to the air bubbles if you do that. And we want to stir it for good grief, I can't talk today. I want to stir it for about 2 minutes. Once we feel it start to get thick, it'll be a little thicker than pancake batter. That's the point that we want to go ahead and do our pour. You can scrape off the sides. It's not really necessary to scrape off the sides because we won't be using all of this in our one pour anyway. We'll have to do this for each individual pour. You may be able to get 2 pours out of it depending on how deep your crevice is and how high you want it to come up, but probably only 1, maybe 1.5 pours. And it's easier to just mix a new batch and throw this out. It's so cheap. Or if you have a mold laying to the side, you can use that. Or another tip would be to pour it in a plastic baggie and wait for it to dry, then take a hammer to it, and it makes for some real nice rubble. Okay, I think we're good. Now we are ready to pour it into the lava crack.